Welcome to Forensic Friday,
where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. So, you guys, we have a special guest today, Lisa VanderGriend.
Woohoo!
And we're doing a wild case. I wanted to tell you a couple of things. First of all, we're recording on Friday the 13th, which is pretty epic.
Yeah.
We're in a play therapy office, which is a little bit wild given our content today. And I don't know, I think you know this, but Gare and I celebrate every Friday the 13th. Our first date was on a Friday the 13th.
Wow.
I know it's been lucky for us.
That is cool.
I know. So we'll have date night tonight. But I love Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very much looking forward to getting spooked out today.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how I know Lisa and how Nat knows Lisa is we work together at Southeast Counseling Center in Parker. And Lisa and I actually have known each other since grad school.
2008.
6, 7, 8.
No, wait, I graduated. 2008.
2008.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So we met in 2008 and Lisa took over some clients for me. I was finishing up internship. She was in practicum and then we met kind of in the workroom doing charting and notes. And I said, you should come work at this place. It was called Lost and Found back in the day. And Lisa was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is history, kind of. We've worked together ever since.
Word.
Mm-hmm. We've been in private practice together. And, coming to work here together is like getting the old gang back together. So we are stoked to have you as our first true crime guest. And not only a guest, but kind of a guest host.
Yeah.
Guest host.
And then, Nat, you've known Lisa for a while now.
Well, I first met Lisa unofficially when you came and taught one of our trauma classes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
At the seminary.
You were in class with the Lisa VanderGriend?
Yes. Yes.
Pretty epic.
I will say that class is a blur because the professor gave me trauma, but... and
then I think I came in there. I was like, it was the trauma and children course where I'm
exactly.
like, I'm not holding anything back, guys.
No, well, that was actually my favorite. That was my favorite class with you. That's the one I remember the most was with you.
Was that the same teacher that gave us a ride home from the airport when we didn't figure that out?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's been cool because when I started working here at Southeast, it's been really fun. I was your office neighbor when I first moved here. I've had like 3 offices so far.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just fun to be able to pop over and we got to know each other. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. I've been here for 3 years now. So I've known you officially for 3 years.
Yes. Very cool.
Well, and Lisa's an epic play therapist, the best I've ever known, ever.
That's very kind.
You are magic with children. And I would love it if you guys would tell us a little bit about what you do clinically, but then you have a little bit of a criminology background that I didn't even know the full depth of until we were prepping for this.
I do. And I went into my closet and found some goodies to show you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Okay, so I probably told you this story, but when I was a kid, probably middle school, we had this greenhouse in the back of our Florida house, and I turned that into Quantico, and I would play like FBI agent, and the greenhouse was Quantico.
This is magical and makes so much sense.
Yes. Okay, so fast forward to high school, I was like, I want to be a criminologist.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in the guidance counselor office. That's what they called it back then.
Yeah.
He's like, you should go to this program. It's in England. I was like, say what? So my senior year of college, I spent a summer at Cambridge.
Oh.
And I found my old criminology reader.
What?
Which was like the course I took.
Okay, that's amazing. I'm so jealous.
Same.
Yeah, it was awesome. So that was like my first introduction to criminology. Then in my undergrad, my major was sociology, but essentially criminology.
Yeah.
And I remember I did an internship in a prison, and did my senior thesis on like the impact of faith-based programs on inmates. And so I like went and interviewed inmates and all kinds of things.
Oh, wow.
Anyways, I ended up at Denver Seminary because I was thinking, I need to know how to be able to like communicate and talk with folks. And then kind of fell into the play therapy world, and the rest is history. So that's that part.
And we've kind of worked on different sides of things for years. So I typically will work with parents, some of them lovely, some of them very difficult. And Lisa really walks their kids through healing from trauma in a non-directive way. So if you guys could see this office, and we'll probably post some pictures, it's like a kid's dream in here. We've got weighted stuffed animals and a sand tray and very specific figures that kids will use to play out scenes from their life. It's very cool.
Yeah. So I have some good news and bad news.
Ooh. Do you want bad news first or good news
I have
first?
to give you the bad news first.
Oh,
I was gonna
okay,
say
okay.
I want the bad news first.
So when I was like going through my stuff, for some reason this was in my banjo case.
What?
I found my old dictaphone.
What is
You guys
that?
don't know? Do you know what a dictaphone is?
No.
No.
This? You've never seen this?
Oh, I had one of those like 100 years ago.
Yeah, it was just a little
like
tiny tape.
record?
Yes. Okay, so this case that we're going to talk about today is very close to home because it happened in my hometown, literally.
Crazy.
But when I was in college, I did a big like investigation report on it. And I came home for like, it was probably like fall break. And I had set up an interview with the chief detective on the case. And I had my dictaphone with me, and I'm like, I'm recording it, right? So the bad news is that I had it recorded, and I was going to find it and play some clips.
Yeah.
The bad news is I recorded over it.
Oh
no.
dang it.
The good news is what I recorded over it is like me playing the banjo, me like talking to my French professor.
Oh my
It's like
gosh.
a treasure vault of stuff.
I
And
love
did you
that.
say you have like a stronger Southern accent?
Yes, and the wild thing is when I was doing my senior thesis, I would interview the inmates, and you weren't allowed to like bring anything into the prison. And so I'd get back in my car and I'd like get my dictaphone out and be like, record my notes. And I found that the other day, and I'm kind of talking like this because I went to school in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
And
I was going to ask why you had a more Southern accent.
Yeah.
That
and
answers
so I
that.
was like, who is that? And I was like, oh my gosh, it's me. So
That would be
the
wild.
good news is if maybe I'll play a clip here or there.
Okay.
It's really
Love that.
The banjo piece.
Yeah.
I wanted to exhibit A here.
So when my parents met Lisa, we were at a 4th of July shindig at my parents' house. And Lisa pulls out her banjo, and my dad won't shut up about it still. It's still one of his favorite things. He's like, oh, Lisa and her banjo.
You played at our staff retreats.
That's true.
Oh, yeah, you're part of the band.
Yeah.
It's true. DSM 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to just like
Jump in.
Jump in. We love story time.
Okay.
Full send.
Full send. Okay. So this case, like I kind of hinted at earlier, this is a case that I knew about growing up. I actually lived in the area when it happened.
Oh, wow.
And I'll kind of harken back to a lot of that as we go over the timeline and whatnot. But I want to first start by having you guys kind of go back to remembering the first week your freshman year of college, right? So usually it's like end of August. People are busy moving in, getting supplies, excitement.
Everybody's a little wide-eyed.
Everybody's wide-eyed.
Kindergarten almost.
Yeah.
Exactly. Depending on where you go, sometimes people are in the dorm room, sometimes people are off campus, right? But you have that. Now, I also want you to imagine that it's the 90s. And so you don't have a cell phone. You know, you're like part of moving in is getting your landline hooked up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Like the see-through blue phones.
I had a green
I had one
one.
of those.
I had the green
Absolutely.
the cordless one.
I got my phone taken away.
That makes sense.
Because I was making prank calls.
Yep.
That's
okay.
amazing.
Anyways, okay, so it's August of 1990, And we are in the college town of Gainesville, Florida, which is University of Florida. Go Gators.
Go Gators.
And we have, I want to start by just talking about two gals, Christina Powell and Sonia Larson. They lived off campus, what was known as Williamsburg Apartments. And my mom went to UF. We all grew up in Gainesville. She like found it on the map where it used to be. She's like, this is where it is and all that kind of stuff, right?
Oh, wow.
So what happened is they were living together and a couple days went by where their parents hadn't heard from them. Okay. So, and by heard from them, we mean landlined, you know?
Yeah. Right.
So they went by the apartment and then contacted essentially to get like a welfare check.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So they open the apartment and they are greeted with seeing Sonia with they're both have been murdered. Sonia was upstairs and she was laid out on the bed, her hair kind of fanned out in a provocative position.
Wow.
Lots of stab wounds, and Christina was the same downstairs. Okay. So the crime scene was kind of noted to be like designed to shock, right?
Like for effect.
For effect.
Yes.
Right. So that then kind of, and I'll get into the details of that a little bit more, but that kind of set the whole town and the university into a panic, right?
Yeah.
And what we see is that over the next 4 days, 5 students were killed.
Wow.
In very similar fashions.
5?
5.
Wow.
5 within 4 days. Yeah. So
this asshole was busy.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's where, this person was dubbed the Gainesville Ripper, which, is what it is with that. So, okay. So that's the scene I want you to kind of hold in the back of your mind.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and go back and talk about who we discovered, the one that did this, and kind of go back to some factors that led up to this.
Okay.
We're all on the same page.
On the same page.
On the same page. Okay. So let's hold that thought in mind and go back to, have you guys been to Louisiana?
Yes. My dad's actually from Baton Rouge.
Oh.
So we used to go all the time to visit my grandmother.
Oh, that's cool.
I have not.
You have not been to Louisiana?
But I am familiar with the Deep South, but not Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Louisiana is a different animal.
Well, we've talked about my Aunt Woot, Aunt Doody, Aunt B. They're all named Mary, and all have guns at all times. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're prepared.
But I've heard Louisiana is another level, kind of just. It's just quirky. It has its own vibe.
Yes.
Sure.
Sure. Whatever.
Moving on.
So we're in Shreveport, Louisiana. Have you been to Shreveport?
Maybe.
Okay. I don't know why I'm asking all this. This doesn't really pertain to anything, but.
Well, it helps to get a picture.
Visual, right?
Yes.
Okay. So May 26, 1954 is the birth of Danny Rawling.
I hate him already.
This is who we're talking about.
What?
Danny Rawling.
Okay.
Rawling. Danny Rawling. Okay. Danny's dad was a policeman. His name was James. And from the get-go, James referred to Danny as an accident that shouldn't have happened.
Well, now I feel bad for Danny.
Yeah. A little flip the script.
Yeah. Little trauma baby.
I mean, he's still an asshole, but he's a little baby traumatized asshole.
Oh, yeah. Buckle up.
Oh, no.
So, Danny would later refer to his dad as a cold-hearted bastard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's love all around here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's been noted that, Danny's dad, James, was violent, abusive, used coercive control, would tell Danny he's useless. Danny's mom, Claudia, did try to flee several times, but ultimately kept coming back, which I know in you guys' work, you deal with that dynamic all the time.
It's so hard to leave, and especially when your partner's a police officer, there's even more barriers to leaving.
And when there's a kiddo involved.
Yeah, and a kiddo.
Yeah. And he had a brother, so there was 2 kids, right?
Oh.
Yeah. So James was known as being unpredictable, often exerting a lot of harsh punishment, which probably wouldn't surprise you guys. The example that was given was, there's a story where Danny found a puppy, like a stray puppy, right? And was very excited about it, brought it home. Then he went to school, and when he came back, he couldn't find the puppy. So James takes him and shows him a hole in the ground and says, there's your puppy. So James had killed the puppy and buried him.
And James is the dad.
Correct.
How confusing for a kid to have a cop dad who's protecting, air quotes, protecting people in the community, but then traumatizing his entire family at home.
Yes, and just killed a puppy.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Like grade A asshole.
Well, I hate him more.
James or Danny?
James.
James.
Well, James traumatized
What do you mean, grade A butthead?
Got something coming his way.
James had the title of grade A asshole. That's James.
Grade A asshole. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a ranking system from previous episodes.
Oh.
Yes.
Is that the highest?
Grade A? No, the highest is
unmentionable.
Yeah, the highest is unnameable.
Unnameable.
Oh.
Grade A asshole. Grade A butthead.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be grade B butthead?
No, just they're all grade A.
B for
grade A
butthead.
Grade A,
butthead.
because it's like, top shelf
Yeah.
asshole.
Yeah.
I won't mess with your system.
That's right.
All right.
Weather alert system, so we know what to expect.
Very organized.
Yeah, based on research.
Yes.
Based on the official protocol.
That's right.
Okay. So we've got that kind of a home life going on. It should be no surprise that, in elementary school, around age 8, 9, Danny started kind of wandering around, getting outside of the house, right?
Oh, 100%.
And he started to kind of wander the neighborhood. There's an account where he talked about that at night was a place he felt at ease, right? And so he would wander the neighborhood and with kind of a voyeuristic quality is how I would describe it, where he would observe people in their homes. And we all know, like, this is one of my pet peeves. When it is night out and you are in your home and you have the light on and the curtains open, everybody can see all the things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So by the Walgreens, where the latest, that murder, the episode we just dropped, there was a man, we called him Shower Guy. My family, every time you drove over the hill, this guy was in his shower in his full glory on the second floor of the house.
Oh, no.
Right by the Walgreens.
And he had a window that showed all the things?
Yep.
That's weird.
Very poor construction.
Yeah.
I think that's purposeful.
Well, I have a window above my tub that I don't have a blind on.
But if you stand, can you see everything or could you just see your face?
If I stand, you could see everything. But I also have lots of pine trees. I think we're fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
Anywho.
Lisa's face.
I'm like, what? Okay. So he would wander around the neighborhood and often like fantasize about like, what would it be like to be in another family,
It feels powerful to prowl around at night. Yeah.
So the fantasy started to build into more of a resentment, which can happen of, why me, those kinds of things.
And like resentful of healthier families.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So at around age 13, it's noted that the stalking behavior progressed to having more of a sexual motivation, which one thing about this case is like, theoretically, if you put the theory stuff on, like this guy's like classic textbook progression in terms of building in criminal activity, if you will.
Yeah.
So Danny reports that he saw a young woman coming out of the shower around this time, and that excited him, and he would go back later and continue to watch this person. And he started developing, honestly, a reputation in his community of being a peeping Tom.
Yeah.
Because people saw him from time to time, I bet.
Like wandering around. Sidebar, who's Tom? I'd like to know the origin of Tom.
Right?
Who's
Peeping Tom? He sounds like somebody we would get referred.
Right? Yeah. The OG, right?
The OG Peeping Tom.
The OG Tom.
Oh my gosh.
Also, Janine, does this change your mind on your window?
A little bit. A little bit.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, I might have to put some on that.
Put some up.
Yeah.
Okay. So fast forward a little bit, around age 16, Danny got in a fight with his dad. He had been drinking I don't know, probably both of them, but definitely Danny.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sent to juvenile detention. Okay.
Mm.
Later on, he ended up dropping out of high school and joined the Air Force. Okay. It's noted that he didn't even serve a year there before he got kicked out, right?
Mhm.
Initially, it went well. And then, as they say, the past catch up to you. So he had an early discharge. And because
Do we know what he did?
In the Air Force?
Yeah, to get discharged.
Substance abuse, drinking,
Okay.
that kind of stuff, right? So then he moved back to Louisiana. I don't know where he was stationed before then. Okay. So now we're in kind of the young adulthood phase. Of all things, he started going to a Pentecostal church.
Well, if that doesn't just track.
And this was probably like his most healthy period, if you will.
Okay.
In 1974, he married, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, Omatha Ann Holko. And they had a daughter within a year.
Wow.
Okay. So this was a period that there was like some brief stability. But then he started drinking again. He became unemployed and started exhibiting a lot of the same controlling behaviors that his dad had, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Example that was given was he would tell his wife, this is what you can wear. You can't wear that. Take that back. Those kinds of things. There's also an account where he and his wife were in an argument and he pointed a shotgun at her.
Ooh.
All right. So the wife left with the baby because she was obviously afraid.
Good for her.
And in 1977, so they had been married 3 years, she filed for divorce.
Mm.
And so her comment was that Danny's not essentially who everybody thinks he is, right?
That tracks.
Yeah, almost like what you're saying with James, the dad.
Yeah.
So one of the things that was kind of noted about Danny was he really blamed everybody else, society, his wife. He never took responsibility for his behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also around this time that he was working in a bakery, I believe, and had an accident that caused him to lose his finger, or a major part of his finger, right?
Okay.
So just file that little factoid away.
Okay. So he's missing part of his finger.
Missing part of a big chunk of a finger, right?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So wife divorces him, and Danny kind of falls more into this devastation, rejectment, resentment, all that just keeps building and building and building. All right. So during this period, Danny started committing various robberies, sexual assaults. He at one point he stole his dad's gun and committed armed robbery across Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, all those things. He spent 8 years behind bars total. And then when he was finally released in 1989, where did he go? Back to Louisiana.
That was my guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Back to Shreveport. So, okay. So now we're in 1989.
Okay.
So, okay.
This is the year after I was born.
Oh.
Shut up, you baby.
And I was born in 88.
84.
85.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's good. That's good. Okay. So November 4th, 1989.
Okay.
All right. Danny was working at a restaurant and he missed his shift.
Oh.
What can you do?
Surprise.
Surprise, surprise, right? He was fired, and during that firing was threatening his manager.
Oh, of course.
Okay. So really what I think is interesting about him, you already can see a pattern. He's what we would call a grievance collector.
Oh, yeah.
And he sort of harbors this resentment towards society, others. Blame is outside of self. And because of that lack of control, that kind of fuels the fantasy world and the attempt to take back control.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? I mean, you guys are in the DV world.
Oh, 100%. We talk about internal versus external locus of control. And so this is kind of the classic
external
locus of control. Things happen to me.
Yeah. I'm a victim to my circumstances.
Exactly.
I'm a victim to getting fired. All I did was miss one shift, but really I missed probably more than that.
Right. Yeah.
And particularly, I think some of the more heinous offenders, instead of developing a healthy internal locus of control, their internal locus of control becomes, I am God. I am the ultimate in control in my life and in the lives of others.
Mhm.
So you take almost like a supreme being, and a lot of mass killers write about that. I am God,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
which is just fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
There we go. So the very day he was fired,
Mm-hmm.
he ran across a gal named Julie Grissom, who's 24. She was a college student. She worked at Dillard's. Do you guys remember? Is Dillard's still around?
It's still around. I
They have
still
the
love
best
it.
shoe department.
Dillard's?
I don't know about the rest of their
I
stuff
don't know.
anymore.
Nordstrom has a beat, I think.
That's true.
But
Dillard's
second.
used to have the best shoe department
Yes.
of
Yeah.
all time.
I mean,
Okay.
I still love Dillard's.
Yeah. So she
Yeah.
worked at Dillard's. She was pursuing a marketing degree. He says he encountered her and it didn't go well. There's claims that maybe he didn't even talk to her. He just saw her, right? You know.
Oh, he didn't talk to her.
Exactly.
And it didn't go well because she didn't smile at him, I'm sure.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
He has an incel quality. We'll get to this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so he followed her home and was spying on her through their window. And at this point, Julie was living with her dad, Tom, and her 8-year-old nephew, Sean, was also visiting. So all three of them were in the home. There's this idea that maybe this building resentment, seeing this sort of perfect family through the window, or whatever. But Danny was aware that all three of them were home. And so he entered the home. And at first, he stabs Tom, the dad, in the lower back and left him in the utility room. Okay. Then he stabs the 8-year-old Sean. And Sean is in the living room. And they noted that he stabbed Sean with such force that the knife went through this precious boy and stuck into the floor.
Wow.
Danny later said, Julie was my target, but they were in the way.
Naturally.
Yeah. So he goes back to where Julie's asleep, cuts off her clothes, rapes her, and stabs her in the back. Now, here's where we're getting a little interesting. We're getting into, I want your hot take on some of this. After he does this, he cleans her. He washes her clothes in the washing machine.
Even though he cut him?
And poses her body in a provocative way on her bed. So when investigators later came on the crime scene, they noticed that there was a residue of duct tape on her hands and mouth. So she had been duct taped, her mouth and her hands during this, but he's removed the duct tape afterwards and cleaned those areas. So the investigators, and we'll get to, eventually when they find them, the investigators coming on the scene are thinking, one of their immediate thoughts is whoever did this is going to do this again.
Oh, yeah.
Because of just sort of the nature of the ritualistic qualities and the elements of the crime scene usually indicate there's going to be a repeat offense.
Yes. Because it's impulsive in a way, but also very specific in terms of how he interacted with the victims in the scene.
Yeah. And what he did after.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Like the whole ritual afterwards of cleaning
Yep.
Right.
and posing and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the murders were discovered 2 days later because the neighbors are like, wow, there's a lot of newspapers piling up. And remember newspapers?
Remember that?
Yeah. And their cars haven't moved, those kinds of things. So that's when they looked through the window, they saw the blood in the living room and, obviously called the police. So one of the things that the investigators noted and wondered now that later on, right, kind of like psychologized this, was that perhaps Danny was sort of flipping his own script. Here he grew up in a home where he was constantly intimidated. And now he's flipping the script where he is the intimidator.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there was an element of like pride in the work. Almost like, look what I can do.
Now I'm the scariest guy in the room.
I'm the scariest guy, right? Okay. So Danny fled after this. And the initial suspect for these murders was Julie's boyfriend, Hal. But he was cleared because he was found that he was in Atlanta, during that time. So 6 months go by. The crime is still unsolved. Danny gets in another altercation with James and ends up shooting James. And James loses an eye and his ear in the fight.
What?
That's why I said, hold on. James,
He's going to get his.
He's going to get his. Literally. Which, like, is a little Old Testament, eye for an eye or whatever.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I don't know.
Bit.
There was a thought process there for sure. How do you lose an eye in a fight?
I don't know.
You don't. You're losing the fight, and then you lose an eye.
Sure. Yeah. And an ear.
James got his, but he didn't die.
He lost an eye and an ear.
Yes.
Did he, like, bite the ear off or something?
I don't know.
Okay.
I love your brain. You're such a weirdo.
I'm literally trying to put it together.
Maybe he got shot in the ear.
Oh, did
Because
he
there was a gun involved.
Oh, okay. Okay. There was a gun.
Ooh, did he get shot in the eye?
I don't know.
I don't know.
He said, this one's for the puppy. Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's for everything else. Okay.
Oh, man. Okay. So we're going to fast forward a little bit. It's May 1990. Fast forwarding a couple months, right?
Okay.
Danny is 36. He has this fight with his dad. He leaves Shreveport and he makes his way around a little bit, eventually going to Gainesville, Florida.
Okay.
Okay. So there's a lot of theories about, like, why did he pick Gainesville? You know, it's a college town. There's
Lots of young women.
Yes. And remember, Julie was a college student as well.
Right.
Some of that might be he wanted to find a place. The college town represents successful young people, kind of with that grievance, resentment building.
Yeah. And even a little incel-y. Like, here's all these people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because the OG incel went on a rampage in California on a college campus. So just sort of this idea, like, I can't have this thing, and so you shouldn't have this thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on to that when we get
Will
to some things about the victims. He stops in Tallahassee, which that's FSU land. That's all we need to say about Tallahassee. But
FSU land.
It's FSU land, yeah. But he buys a K-bar knife.
A K-bar and a knife?
A K-bar is a knife.
It is?
Yeah, it's the same knife that Kohlberger used in the Moscow murders.
Oh.
Allegedly.
Yes.
Okay.
He buys one of those.
And that's a fixed blade, right? It's a K-bar knives are like fixed blades in a sheath.
Sure.
Okay, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And they have a long blade. Okay.
You got me.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a sturdy, like...
Yeah. Well, he bought it at the Army Navy store or wherever, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was at, you know, an X-Acto knife for, like, cutting fabric at Hobby Lobby or something, you know.
Right. Not the, like, fancy
my
scissors.
Kids, like the kid scissors.
Yeah, or something like that, right?
Now, Gainesville, he didn't have any other ties to the area. He just meandered until he landed in that college town.
Smallish town, even though it's a college town.
So it's like, well, let me get to that.
Okay. Sorry, we're getting ahead.
With my Gainesville.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Okay. So he buys the knife and then proceeds on to Gainesville. And like anyone would do, makes a camp in the woods.
This is why I don't camp.
You know?
I mean, this is one of the reasons I don't camp.
Woods. And so here's a sidebar about Gainesville. My mom calls it, like, the way she would describe Gainesville as a canopy of trees. It's very lovely. It's one of my hardest things about moving to Colorado back in 2007 was I'm like, where are all the trees? And I know y'all people say, we have plenty of trees. I'm like, no, you don't.
It's not the
We
same.
have little trees. One, a while back, they all burned down.
True. Or like the beetles came along and ate them.
Beetle kill. And then they had to do forest fires. It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's a very, like, lush green, lots of trees area. It's a college town, and we always joke, like, in the summer everything gets quiet because all the students leave.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you get that bustle when they come back.
Yeah.
I couldn't give you numbers, but the town nearly doubles once.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was
Boulder's
kind of like
that
old
too.
school Boulder.
Yes, exactly. So he sets up camp in the woods, lots of woods going on around there, and becomes what we would call, like, a vagrant with a purpose, right? He's not just there to, like, roast s'mores. And it was thought that he was looking for a particular type of victim, because all of his targets that we'll find out are all young women that are brunettes. And so there's some thought that his wife Omatha was a brunette. And so there's some theories around that piece too.
Yeah. Okay.
So Okay, so we're in the woods. We're in Gainesville. Now we're back to where we started. It's, the first week of college.
Okay.
Freshmen are coming in, all those sorts of things. So Danny, when we're back to Christina Powell and Sonia Larson, Danny would watch them through their windows from the woods that were behind their apartment.
Mm.
Okay. And so early one morning on August 23rd, I believe that's a Thursday, if we are taking account of that, he broke into their home. What's really interesting in Florida, we have a lot of sliding doors because we have a back porch and people have a sliding glass door.
Yeah.
Pretty much everywhere you go with apartments and stuff. That's a big thing. So he broke in the early morning and this is important, he used a screwdriver to get in through the sliding door, and he brought the K-bar knife.
Okay.
And those are kind of noted as his signature elements.
Okay.
So he breaks in. He sees Christina is asleep on the couch downstairs. All right. And he knows there's two of them because he's been watching them. So he leaves her down there asleep and goes upstairs to Sonia. He attacks her, duct tapes her mouth, stabs her repeatedly in the arms, the torso. Then comes back downstairs for Christina. With Christina, again, tapes her mouth and her hands behind her back, cuts off her clothes and rapes her with a knife to her throat. It was noted that he stabbed her 5 times, at least, in the back. Again, he washes her and poses her, and later poses Sonia in provocative positions. So for Sonia, she, like I said earlier, she was laid out on the bed, arms over her head, hair kind of fanned out. Christina was in a similar position downstairs on the floor. So again, they find this residue of the duct tape. The duct tape's not on their wrists or their mouth, but they find the residue of it, right? It's also noted that he took a shower in their apartment before leaving.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's an add-on.
That's interesting.
I want to pause really fast. I think it's interesting, and maybe we'll get to this, that his biggest target is women, and there's a sexual component to this because his abuser was his dad. And so far we don't know, or there isn't evidence of any sexual abuse in his past.
Not that it's reported, just that progression of the voyeurism, childhood, I wish I had a better family, then it became...
Dad was into some weird sex stuff, though.
Probably,
you just know. And then they clearly weren't protecting children. So sometimes kids in these homes, and Nat and I've seen this before, get exposed to stuff really young.
Yeah.
Violent pornography, or if he was abusing mom in such a way and he knew about it or saw it.
Right.
That can really mess up a kid.
Yeah.
Fair. Very fair.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So like I said earlier, this was a crime scene with a purpose, and it was designed to shock, right? Later on, Danny would reflect back, he'd been asked, what were you trying to what message were you trying to send?
Yeah.
Because it was such a specific setup. And he said, my message was that evil is real and evil walks this earth as a natural man.
Wow.
Look at the grandiosity. I am evil.
The I am God.
I am God. Yeah. I am evil.
Right.
Supreme in some way.
Supreme. All I can think of is Star Wars when you say that. Supreme leader.
So,
Think of pizza.
Of course you do.
That's better. Pizza's better, yeah. Well, sure.
Anyway.
Okay, so that's August 23rd. Okay. And so at this point, they are in their apartment. They've been murdered, and he leaves the scene of the crime. Okay. So 2 days later, and remember, Christina and Sonia have not been found yet. August 25th. Danny breaks into the home of an 18-year-old named Krista Hoyt. Okay, Krista was a community college student at Santa Fe Community College, which is another school in Gainesville. And she also worked part-time at the sheriff's office. Okay. And she lived in a duplex that was really near a wooded area. Right. So that's kind of that background. So again, Danny uses the screwdriver, opens the sliding door, and carries the K-bar knife to go through. So initially when he broke in, Krista was not home. So he waited for her.
That's my worst fear. somebody waiting in my house.
Yeah, waited for her and then ambushed her.
Oh, gosh.
Again, binds her. This point gags her, cuts off her clothes, and rapes her. He then stabs her in the back and leaves. What's interesting is that they later discovered that Danny went back to the scene because he thought he lost his wallet.
Huh. And sorry, back up really fast. Did he pose her?
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So he posed her, but I wanted to give this.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
He goes back because he thinks he lost his wallet. And that was the point when he went back, then he decapitated her.
Oh.
So he didn't originally behead her. But when he went back to the scene to look for his wallet, he did that.
That's a new twist.
Yeah. So he put the decapitated head on a shelf and positioned her body so that the head was like looking at the body.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Golly.
This guy's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
Posing her body to be in a position like the thinker. I don't know if you know that statue.
No.
Okay, you'll have to look it up. He also staged it so that when you opened the door, that was the first thing you saw. So he placed it in a way for that. And, some of the investigators noted that it was like this owning of the victim, right? They felt like he owned them. This is one that he mutilated all the bodies, but in particular with Krista, he severed her nipples and took them, kind of like that.
So that was his
trophy.
souvenir?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Was this the first time he took nipples?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, weird question I didn't expect to hear this morning.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. The first time he took nipples.
Yeah.
Well, if it becomes a souvenir, I just wonder if he took the others,
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. So... Yeah.
For those of you keeping score, we still hate him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this was the most gruesome of all his killings, is what they noted. And there's also a theory that Krista, of all the victims, resembled more closely resembled Danny's wife.
I was wondering why.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So at this point, Homeboy has killed 3 people in less than 48 hours.
Good Lord.
Okay. So next day, August 26th, it's a Sunday. This was, again, remember when Christina and Sonia's parents are like, yeah, we haven't heard from them. Let's see what's going on, right? So they discover them, and then also later that day discover Krista. Now, Krista was discovered more quickly because she didn't show up for work the next day. She worked at the sheriff's office, and that was very out of character for her to not show up, right? So the officers went to her home and found her. So what's really interesting is that, at this point, I lived in Gainesville. I was 5 when this was all happening. And my mom talks about, she remembers this day when all 3 of them were found because you could hear sirens all throughout the town, kind of with that. So what's really interesting, from a community perspective, at this point, you've got 3 bodies found with all essentially at the same time. That people, as you can imagine, started freaking out.
Oh, yeah.
In the community, right? All kinds of rumors circulated. You had things selling out, and you couldn't buy locks if you went to the store. Mace, all that kind of stuff. From a community perspective, that everybody was terrified with that. Well, Danny, I guess he didn't know how to rest or something, but that same day that he did that, they found Krista's body on August 26th. He commits armed robbery at the First Union Bank in Gainesville.
So literally, as the news is covering his 3 murders, he decides to go commit armed robbery at a bank?
Correct.
Wow.
Okay. Yes.
Really nothing to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. And the teller slips a pack of red dye into the bag.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Do they do this still? Is that a thing?
I think they still do it.
Fascinating.
Wait, if they get robbed or something?
Yeah. Well, and now the technology's better, with, silent alarms and stuff, but
Gotcha.
I believe they still do that sometimes, though, because it's just indisputable physical evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so he does that. Next day, August 27th, We're switching to another set of roommates, Tracy Pauls and Manny Taboda. They're both 23, and they were called the Gatorwood Apartments. And these apartments were closer to where Danny was actually camping out.
Okay. Man and a woman roommate?
Yeah, Manny and Tracy.
Okay.
I think it's important to note, like, Manny was 6'2".
Oh,
So
wow.
he's a big guy. So at this point, they discovered the three other students.
Right.
Everybody's on alert. There's even records of, Manny was working this evening, and Tracy called someone and was like, if he doesn't come home soon, like, I'm out of here, right? Because really, students were starting to leave campus because of the fear.
Mm-hmm.
And how specific is the news about the
Murders.
Now, I mean, the whole town was freaking out.
Like,
So-
did the town know she was missing nipples?
No, those kinds of information was not. My understanding wasn't revealed right away, right?
So they know we have a murder.
Crime scene 101, where they like.
They're not going to release everything.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
That way, if somebody's like, oh, blah 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 blah,
But I feel like with some other cases, it comes out pretty fast
right?
because it gets leaked by the family or whoever.
Sure.
But they're freaked out anyway. They just know there's somebody stabbing people. They probably knew that much.
So, yeah, I was going to ask, like, was it, and you might not remember because you were 5, but if
Yeah.
your mom told you, were they saying all these people were murdered on the news, or were they just saying we found 3
People
bodies?
knew that they had been murdered.
Okay.
Okay.
And it was all very quickly.
Okay.
Mm.
And some of the reaction, like, so I was in kindergarten, but my mom said, like, people would not let their kid, like, they'd meet their kid at the bus stop.
Mhm.
They wouldn't let them walk home.
Were they saying in the news, do you know if they thought it was the same perpetrator, or were people left to kind of wonder if it was the same or maybe different things happening?
Well, they knew that it was the same perpetrator
Okay.
because of the signature elements of the crime scene.
Right.
They didn't connect this robbery to the murders, though.
Okay.
Oh,
That makes
okay.
sense.
Yeah.
That makes
It
sense.
was a random
Because that
robbery
would feel different. Yeah.
on top of it. And he used a gun
Instead of a
during the
knife.
robbery instead of a knife.
That's so interesting because when we talk about psychopaths and criminal versatility,
Mm-hmm.
they just do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it. So that's super interesting to me that just an armed robbery, just
Mm-hmm.
in between
Mm-hmm.
graphic murders.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Exactly. So we have another set of roommates, Tracy Pauls and Manuel, or went by Manny Taboda. They're both 23. They lived in what's called the Gatorwood Apartments. They're not there anymore. They've been rebuilt over and stuff. But this was apartments that were very near where Danny was camping out in the woods.
Oh,
So
geez.
accessibility-wise is a lot closer.
Okay.
So again, everybody was on high alert. There's even records of Tracy leaving, like, a phone recording of her leaving a message with someone saying, because Manny was at work during this time.
Yeah.
Hey, if he doesn't come home soon, like, I'm out of here. Like, I don't want to be home alone. Those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
Because they knew that he was targeting women.
And that's like rule number 1. Don't be home alone if something like
Exactly.
this is going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, like I said, I don't know if I mentioned this, but Manny was 6'2".
Right.
So he's
Oh, he's big
dude.
like Gare.
Big dude.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So Manny comes home. Tracy's like, okay, we're all good here,
Mhm.
Now, when Danny broke in with the screwdriver through the sliding door, again, carrying the K-bar knife, and then he also had a gun in this case, he was not aware that Manny lived there or was currently in the home.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay. So he discovers Manny in his bedroom and stabs him repeatedly. And there's some evidence that Manny fought back.
Mm.
I bet.
Tried to fight back, right?
Yeah.
And what's reported is that his screaming wakes up Tracy.
Okay.
She's upstairs.
Mm.
So she then locks herself in her room.
Mm.
And Danny comes up the stairs to him.
That is terrifying.
That's so scary.
The report is, I guess Danny later said this, is that Tracy asked him through the door, "You're the one, aren't you?"
Mm.
And he responded, "Yeah, I'm the one."
Oof.
Oh, that's so scary.
Right.
It's like goosebumps.
Yeah. breaks in through her door, again, tapes her mouth, her hands, cuts off her clothes, rapes her, and stabs her in the back. Once again, cleans and poses the body. So
That's so scary. Quick question. Did we address how big Danny is?
Oh, good question. I don't think we did.
Okay.
I actually don't know how big he is.
Okay. Just
Like how
curious.
tall, you mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't think he's particularly, like, tall.
Because it's interesting. He could get a 6'2" guy.
Well, if he was asleep in his bed.
Oh, that's valid.
And a K-bar knife is no joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
But I'm with you, though.
yeah, when I was looking at this particular murder, that's when I kind of had that parallel with the Idaho guy.
Oh, the Moscow murders.
Yeah. I thought you guys would know more about that, but there's some interesting parallels there. In terms of, wasn't there a theory that maybe he didn't know that there would be a male? Or how did that go?
Seriously, that Koberger. First of all,
I don't think he knew that there would be a male there.
Koberger studied criminology, which we're going to get into.
Yeah.
He likely was very familiar with this case. So the K-bar knife is fascinating to me because there's a little bit of a signature there, even coming in a sliding door. Like, there's just some clear similarities. I do not think that Koberger expected to see Ethan. And Ethan was a big guy, a big athletic guy as well. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, let's say, so he used a K-bar knife as well.
He did.
Okay.
Yeah, like same exact knife, like K-bar, not exact knife, but exact type of knife.
And I'm pretty sure Koberger was really only targeting the girls.
Oh, yeah.
2 in particular. And then there's more.
And may have been surprised by the other 2 that were there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that was the 27th. The next day, the 28th, Tuesday, that's when Tracy and Manny's bodies were discovered. I don't know the background, like if someone called in to check on them or if they saw, but either way, within the next day, they were discovered. Okay. So around this time, everybody's on high alert, right? And so police noted that there was these 2 kind of like suspicious dudes. And they followed them back into the woods and found that there was this campsite there. Well, it ended up that one of those people was Danny, and the other was his drug dealer, his friend, not his drug dealer. He was a drug dealer who was his friend. At that point, Danny kind of scooted and fled, and they arrested this drug dealer. Well, at the campsite, in one tent in particular, they found a bunch of money that was covered in red dye.
Oh.
Okay. And so they also found a gun that matched the description from the robbery. They found a ski mask, they found trousers, and they even found some traces of pubic hair. Okay. So initially they did not make the connection between the robbery and the murder because the murders didn't involve a gun.
Right. They're not thinking they're even looking for somebody with a gun necessarily.
Exactly. Or someone that's just robbed the bank.
Right. Yeah. And I don't, from what you've said so far, there's been nothing to where he's robbing them, the people he's killing.
Yeah. Correct. Fast forward later, it was later found that the ski mask contained fibers that matched the duct tape from Tracy's murder. The pubic hair matched Krista Hoyt's. And the blood on the trousers, I guess they found blood on the trousers, matched Manny's blood, right? But initially they weren't like doing a deep dive with some of those things because they just said, hey, we found the guy or whoever that did the robbery, right? They also found at the campsite a screwdriver and audio tapes.
Oh.
So here's the snafu. They didn't listen to these audio tapes until months later. And months later, when they listened to the audio tapes, that's when they go, oh my gosh, it's one and the same, right?
Wow.
Same person, right?
I wonder why it took them months to listen to it.
I know. Why didn't they listen? You have a murderer in this town.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
That day.
I don't know.
So interesting.
Blood on the trousers. Why aren't we listening to the tapes?
Right. Okay, so I want to play to you guys a clip of one of the audio recordings that Danny did right before. I don't remember which murder this was before, but this was something he recorded. So here we go.
I know have to run the rest of my life. But I'm getting pretty good at it. I'm a big boy. I take care of myself. We're all down here for just a breath anyway. Well, I'm going to sign off for a little bit. I got something I got to do.
So he's saying at the end, there's something I got to do. And that's when he went and committed the murder, right? Yeah. Okay.
Did you say I'm a big boy?
I'm a big boy.
I'm a big boy.
Yeah, just like that.
There's something creepier about a Southern accent. I feel like in this, because I love a Southern accent. Your mom has the most lovely voice of all time.
Aww.
It's extra creepy, I think, when a serial killer has like a lovely Southern accent. That just is wild.
Right.
Not my favorite.
I think it's weird that he says I'm a big boy.
He has to remind himself because he's also a little bit chicken shit. You know what I mean? Because that's who attacks women when they're sleeping. You know?
Well, maybe that's part of it is now that he's big and strong, he can do these things.
I'm a big boy.
I'm a big boy.
So gross.
A weirdo.
Okay, so at this point we've got 5 murders in the 4 days, right?
Okay.
Again, when we look at like the impact on like the town, I think I said this earlier, like guns, the sale of guns, mace, even tear gas, rocketed. You couldn't find, locks anywhere. Like you go to the store to get extra locks, they're all sold out. Some people even took advantage of it by like advertising attack dogs, stun guns, mace keychains, all the things, right? And so there was just a general sense of distrust, right? You're like, we don't know what's happening, right? What's funny is that like, I had read some newspaper articles where like, I think business went down by 50%, 20 to 50%, but the regional airport skyrocketed in terms of.
Because everybody's like, bye.
Yeah, everybody's flew. Yeah. So there were a lot of students that just flew home. They left.
Well, and that was true in Moscow too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think they finished the semester remote.
Yeah.
And post-COVID, that's kind of an option now. It wouldn't have been then. But parents got their kids out of there.
Oh, heck yeah.
Right. Yeah, because at this point, they're like, we don't have a suspect. This person's on the loose. He could, strike. He or whoever could strike again at any point.
Absolutely.
Right? So their initial suspect, because I think you guys, I don't know if this is true in Idaho, but, you've got that community, the terror fueling, like we've got to find a suspect, like pressure.
Well, they wrongly identified ex-boyfriends. One of the victims' ex-boyfriends was kind of implicated for a minute because they had broken up fairly recently. Ironically, they have actually a really amicable relationship. They still share a dog. But then there was also a man who was standing by the food truck where they got
the hoodie
food.
Guy.
There was a guy in a hoodie. And actually he was ultimately, I think, was he the one who took them home? I can't remember if he's the one who gave him a ride home, but he was just standing there and he got implicated and then all the internet sleuths decided to go find him.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this case is they didn't have any of that internet accessibility of surveillance tape and all that stuff that you have now.
Right.
Where you have millions of people trying to say who did it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Good point. Okay, so around August 30th, so that's just like a couple days after they had discovered Tracy and Manny's body, they identified their initial suspect. It was this dude, 19-year-old, named Edward Humphrey. He lived in the same apartment complex as Tracy and Manny. And kind of had a history of like aggression with other students. There had been reports of him kind of doing odd behavior, like going around at night with a knife on what he would call recon missions, which anyways, displaying magazines that had severed heads. So again, he became a huge media focus because there was this desperation to solve. Which those factors alone, I'm like, that's pretty interesting. So
yeah,
it was DNA evidence that later disproved that it wasn't Humphrey, right? But it created a false sense of security while they had Humphrey arrested, right?
Did law enforcement really key in on Humphrey?
Yes.
Because you know how law enforcement they're under so much pressure to keep everybody safe and calm it down. Sometimes they get a little myopic.
Yeah.
And they get a confirmation bias. And so then they're looking at him and everything that lines up with the case about Humphrey, they would,
Yeah.
Right.
that's a point for Humphrey being the suspect.
Exactly. Oh, he has a knife. Oh, he goes out
And
at
they
night.
lose
Oh,
curiosity about other people.
Yeah.
he has a severed head.
Well, and part of that, I think, is they just want an answer
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the community can feel safe. But yeah, that can lead you to getting it wrong.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So meanwhile, Danny had stolen a car and he drove down to Tampa, committed more robberies, and eventually he was caught robbing a Winn-Dixie. You guys ever been to a Winn-Dixie?
No.
Oh, really?
Okay.
What's a Winn-Dixie?
It's like a grocery store.
Oh,
Sounds
cute.
Winn-Dixie. It's like maybe a southern chain, I guess. We had them all over in Florida and North Carolina.
Is it like a big store or like a little almost gas station-y store?
No, like a Albertsons.
Okay.
Winn-Dixie.
Winn-Dixie. Okay.
So he was caught robbing a Winn-Dixie in Ocala. Ocala is like 20, 30 minutes away from Gainesville.
And they're thinking, we have the robber.
Yeah. Well, none. Maybe, right?
Okay.
Sidebar, John Travolta has like a huge thing of property in Ocala for like, because a lot of people that own horses. It's a very beautiful area.
Fascinating.
Anyways,
Interesting.
I had to add that in there. Okay. So they got the gun that Danny had used in this robbery and they traced it back to the registered owner of that gun. And so they're chatting with the owner and he's like, I don't know. I sold this gun to some vagrant, but he did have a missing finger. Okay. Now remember I told you that's like a clue to hold on to earlier.
Right.
So this was one of the first connecting clues between the robbery and the murders. There had been something they noted at the crime scene of Christina and Sonia. They found this like a piece of a paper towel that was on the kitchen counter. And there were some different things imprinted, but on one side, there was like almost the imprint of a hand. And they noticed in that imprint, there was a portion of a finger missing or a finger missing, right?
Huh.
So they realizing like, oh my gosh, perhaps the murderer and the bank robber are connected, are one and the same. All right. So here's where I'm going to leave you today, because we also need to go back to Shreveport with those original murders.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to leave you there, and then we can chat more about how it all connected.
Ooh.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm royally creeped out. I'm planning to watch scary movies tonight, but I am, I might be Disney movies.
Yeah.
It's that this is so creepy.
Right. And you said you were going to watch Scream, right?
I was going to watch Scream.
Well, that plays a special role in this case, too.
Oh, okay.
Well, already it does, like from what you shared, because the waiting in the house,
Oh, it
the whole
feels like
creepy
that.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. Well, Lisa, thank you so much. And I know you're going to be back for part 2
Yes.
of the Gainesville Ripper. So thanks for joining us.
Bye, forensic friends.
I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more crime, psychology, and heart.